Sorry, I'm cringing because I don't think I've ever cleaned my fan in any of my devices. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's I think the first thing that PC repair people do is open it up and be like, "Wow."
Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of Tech. I am Carolina Milanese, and I'm your host. Today, we are going to talk about how the path to sustainability is far from being straight. As organizations really focus on bringing to market products that focus on sustainability and pull together customers, partners, and other stakeholders, it's clear that sometimes there are conflicts in the level of priorities that everybody has. And balancing revenue growth and environmental protection can create some tension. So, developing sustainable strategies, often requires significant investment in research, as you well know, and a drive in innovation, but also that balancing act of pulling all your stakeholders together. And what is clear if you follow along, not just in my tech, but really follow the industry, and we're fresh out of um, the week that I spent in New York for Climate Week. It's clear that beyond the investment and beyond just the dedication that you might have, you need to account for trial and error. You need to account for setbacks and breakthroughs, and really make sure that not that your path is linear, but that you are able to really learn and pivot. I am so honored to have today with me Katie Grain. Katie is a global product manager and sustainability strategist at Dell. And she, apart from being a passionate leader with a perfect last name, who is dedicated to creating and developing sustainable products, but also a very impactful storytelling to bring those stakeholders together. She's also been very involved with Concept Luna, and this is where I'm going to start. But first, welcome Katie to the conversation.
Hi, thanks for having me. You know this is my favorite topic, so I'm sure we can talk for longer than the allocated time.
Yes, I knew that when I asked you to come on. You and I know each other well, and I mentioned storytelling because I do think that we are still in a phase where there are a lot of skeptics out there, and storytelling is as important as innovation is, in order to bring everybody along. But I wanted to use Concept Luna because I do think there's still um, misunderstanding in the market as to what the project started out to be and what it became. And if people are not aware with Concept Luna, I want to say that, and you're going to say in a much more intelligent way than I do, but it was an initiative that Dell started with, really thinking about how modular technology applied to a PC could actually help with repair, upgrade, and really extending the lifespan of a PC. Tell me a little bit why we started thinking, from a Dell perspective, at this as one of the, if you like, the cornerstone of your sustainability efforts.
Yeah, and thanks for the Luna overview. I've got Concept Luna in the background, so that's here on my desk, just so you know she's here with us.
It's alive, yes.
Um, so I took this role in sustainability within our product group in 2019 when we were stating our goals for 2030 and then 2050 on carbon emissions. And so, it was as simple as we had a contest, an innovation contest that anybody can submit to. And being really fresh in the topic, I was really excited. And I said, well, let's, innovate a way to accomplish our goals now. We've got 10 years to figure it out, to accomplish the goals. And so let's cram them all in and see what we can do. So it was absolutely, an aspirational innovation project to just pursue the power of the possible. What should we do to improve PC design for repairability? Not forgetting durability, which our customers have
Yes.
told us is, you don't have to repair it if it doesn't break. So make sure that durability is there while also improving the repairability, physical attributes. And we went beyond modularity into carbon emissions because we do have an emissions goal. And so acknowledging that there's a lot of things in the design that are impacted by supply chain and manufacturing, and then on the back end services. So we didn't want to just make a PC that can be easily disassembled. We wanted to make sure that we were reducing emissions along the way, dematerializing components that maybe aren't as necessary anymore, or that are just designed a certain way that if you just shift this left a little bit, then you can save, a space on the board that could be reduced, that would reduce the emissions. So it wasn't just about the repair and modularity. We really wanted to tackle all of the aspects, emissions reductions through a number of ways, modularity to improve repairability and extending that life, and then incorporating intelligent telemetry, which since our debut of Concept Luna has skyrocketed. Using telemetry to drive AI and
Yeah.
insights that can help you extend the life of your product or acknowledge that maybe it's time to refresh. So still absolutely pursuing how that telemetry can influence product design after the product shipped and influence the next generation. So it was quite the undertaking, but totally intended to be a prototype and an exploration into what's possible. And I think, it was so good that people want it in their hands. And that was just never the intention.
And that's where some of the challenge was, but I'm sure there were more before we get to the good part of the pivot and why pivot. Because to your point, to prove your concept, you had to come out with a physical device. And right or wrong, we all get very carried away when we actually see a device, and not just as analysts and kind of men and women at work, but your customers see this and they want the device itself. What were some of the challenges that you faced to really take the concept and think about what would it look like at scale?
I'm glad you said at scale, because that is one of the biggest challenges is, you could implement it in one device and it's beautiful and great. However, to implement those changes at scale is much, much more challenging.
Yeah.
It did allow us to file more than 430 patents in sustainable innovation. So it's
How many?
absolutely more than 430 over the last 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's absolutely accelerating, internal innovation where we think we can implement these things throughout the product portfolio, and to your point, at scale. Because if we can implement one small change across the products that we sell, that's monumental, and easier to accelerate the impact than just having one niche product. Some of the challenges, we are a product group organization, but we have other organizations for supply chain manufacturing, operations, and at the back end services. So to really build something that motivated the entire company to rally around one idea and find the parts of it that impact their business. It has been a challenge, but it's also an opportunity. It's brought a lot of people across the company together to acknowledge that this is an industry-wide problem and that we have a path to resolve some of those challenges.
I, from where I'm sitting, I think that part of the challenge is also the fact that the business world is so diverse in how they think about computing, right? So it's not a one size fits all. And so if you're looking at your customers, either because of the size of your customers or the different kind of I hate this word, but I'm going to use it, personas within your customer base. There are different machines that you might want to use. The other challenge that I see, and I'm curious, about your thoughts with this point, is the fact that as much as there are goals, as much as we all talk about sustainability is still not the main driver. And so when you purchase a device, there are other things that you consider, and sustainability comes to the end as okay, if everything is equal and this is more sustainable, I'll buy this, but I'm not gonna compromise on anything else. And so am I being unfair, or is that still where the problem is when you're talking about scale?
No, you're absolutely right. There are personas that need more energy, more power, more performance to do the work that those people are doing. So it may not be the most the accurate or the correct persona to put an energy efficient PC in their hands. They are doing a job that requires more power and more performance, and we're not going to, we don't want to take that away from them. And their IT purchasing decision makers understand that. They acknowledge this user needs more power and performance. It may not be the best energy efficient solution, but it's for a specific worker. And then look at the other parts of your workforce and say, well, these workers, they could absolutely use a more efficient PC,
That's right.
and just outfitting them correctly, and making sure that we have a responsibility to incorporate sustainability across the portfolio and end to end, and to make it easy so that it doesn't come down to a make or break decision. If it's integrated and it performs the same as an equivalent product, but has these additional sustainability benefits, has been dematerialized for reduced emissions, has optimized sizes of components for emissions, has improved repairability, has an increase in recycled content. If all of those things are integrated and don't cost more, then it makes the decision an easy one to choose the more sustainable device. But yeah, we know that power and performance, form factor even, have a stronghold on people's desires of what they want out of a PC. And
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
that part of it is still education, right? I was talking about storytelling at the beginning, and I do think that especially as we get more into I think that the learning that still is ahead of us of really making sense of when to use AI and not to use AI, and the impact that generative AI will have on power and consumption, I think is all, new things that we need to learn and be aware of. But to your point, if you start designing a product with sustainability in mind, then it's going to become much easier for somebody looking at purchasing to make the right decision. You kind of touched on it at the beginning, and I kind of spoiled the whole conversation when I said, one of the reasons why I wanted to talk to you was because of the pivot that you made around Concept Luna. Uh, Tell me when you realized and how you got to that point that taking the learnings, and I'm going to ask you about specifically which learnings, but taking the learnings from the concept and taking it to your full portfolio was the best way forward.
I think when we had conversations with customers, it really brought a lot of the challenges to the surface about what we saw from Concept Luna as, groundbreaking innovation. And we met with hundreds of customers in person, put the product in their hands, and got their real feedback. And some of these occasions were over a full week's time. So giving them time to think about it, don't just react, oh, this is cool, but think hard about how would you implement this device in your workforce. What are some of the pros and cons of this advanced repairability? And I think that one of the biggest shockers was they do not want it to be that easy for the end users to get into the internal components. which is kind of
It's a
silly.
shocker, but to be honest with you, given that the human is always the weakest link, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, yeah. Secure device concerns. And you can flip the device over and unscrew it if you wanted to today. And your IT manager is not going to stop you from doing that today. So it's kind of silly that that's a concern because it is a capability today, but it just makes it so easy. And so they were afraid of that ease of access, where we were so excited about the ease of access. So it's that balance between, you kind of said it earlier, the balance between what the worker needs and what we're designing. And
Mm.
that was one of the things was, don't make it so easy. We do want to be able to repair PCs quickly and get the worker back, get their PC back to them and get them back to work as soon as possible. But we don't want them hacking into their computers and trying to, build a PC out of what we've
Because
given them.
that's what you could actually do, right? The part of your innovation was actually, and part of that change in design was actually as minute as changing the way the screws look and how you take them off, right?
And making it capable for robotics to assemble and disassemble. And so as we were doing our iterative sprints on the robotic side, robots don't like screws at all. So adjusting the design to be screwless was major and driven by that innovation in robotics. And if that part is more futuristic, the idea that we would be using robots for assembly, for repair, and for disassembly at the end of life is not too far fetched, but it takes a lot of change, and that would be a significant challenge to implement a screwless design in a product that we ship for commercial customers. And that kind of was a little bit on that durability balance. Make sure it's durable, and with durability comes screws to tighten things up, to make sure they stay in the right place. If it takes a tumble out of your bag onto the floor, you want all those components to still be in the right spot. So we did pass durability tests with Concept Luna, but that was, probably the second biggest concern from customers is, I love it, but is it as durable as if you just put a screw here and there? So balancing that robotic disassembly that required no screws and a customer desire to have more durability and potentially more screws.
And I like the point that you brought up about robotics, because that shows that your innovation did not start and stop with the actual machine, but you had to think more broadly about how you were supporting that idea of like a more modular machine. And I actually saw the robotic arm that was able to disassemble Concept Luna, and is extraordinary. And we have seen in the industry others like Samsung and Apple bring some of those robots to market. And to your point, we're close, but we are not quite yet there as far as everything that gets brought back being disassembled by a robot. But there was a lot that you put into really thinking more broadly about the device. Am I correct?
Yeah, the intelligent telemetry side is the ability to analyze all the components and analyze what's left in their life. If they come back after 3 years of use, which would be considered a typical, first life cycle, being able to get valuable telemetry on the use of those components, the what's left in them. They may not be new. They're obviously not new. They've been used for 3 years, but does that component still have value? And would that be a good, valuable component to put in a refurbished PC?
Hmm.
Or the idea that you don't have to build another PC if you can harvest parts from multiple PCs, and that's where the compatibility comes in. And where we can shift design to be more compatible generation over generation and between product lines where appropriate, to ensure that you don't lose that part just because the next few generations may not be compatible with the format, the size, the layout, Technology is going to keep moving forward, and there's going to always be places where things cannot be easily upgraded, 4 or 5, 6 years later, but designing in a way that they have the best chance possible to maintain that form factor gen over gen, so that when it does get to its first end of life, you have the ability to mix and match spare parts that have been harvested from different PCs and recreate a new one. So just that idea that it can always be updated and you're reducing your emissions by not building a whole new PC.
I like that. And I think that that's where, what we are talking about as far as starting designing with sustainability in mind really comes to life, because changing design for the sake of changing design, when you know that that is going to have a negative impact of how many components you can reuse, is not the best way forward from a sustainability perspective. It might get you a cooler device, but there's more to it that we need to think about. And in on this idea of circular economy, I'm curious, when is we were talking about a company as big as Dell with all the customers on the enterprise size that you have, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you face?
Well, we have hurdles internally, just such a large company and bringing everybody together. But like I mentioned, this has brought a lot of people together. I hear from people all over the company who find out that I was associated with Concept Luna, and they're like, I just want to talk to you about it. So internally, the hurdle is just functioning across multiple organizations to really
Mm,
bring the right change. And not just a piece of the change. And then we have, hurdles as an industry. If we're competing against a product that's super thin and light, and we've prioritized repairability and modularity, that may sacrifice some of that height. So as an industry, I think we do need to kind of go away from that thin and light where things are sealed and soldered, and move closer to a repairable device that is going to sacrifice some of that form factor, look and feel that people have become accustomed to. And then across the industry, this is a little bit more of an emissions topic. We can ask, our supply chain partners for emissions information, and they are giving us what is available. But in a lot of instances, the more you dig, the less information is available.
yeah.
And so, in order to provide to customers an accurate portrayal of the carbon footprint of a product, we need to dig very deeply, and we need, partnerships within the supply chain that are also digging, so that we can all come to the table with more, accurate data as possible. So as an industry, there's just a challenge in that area. Which components have the highest carbon footprint? Does it vary from supplier to supplier? Do we make adjustments in our supply chain partnerships to prioritize partners who have low emissions priorities in place? And that's a big industry hurdle that we're all, I think, trying to tackle together.
And one that Dell is putting a lot of focus on. We know that there are going to be more requirements from just a regulatory perspective in sharing numbers and being more transparent about your manufacturing process across tech. But you have taken a very active role as far as really helping your supply chain to meet those requirements, and not just expecting the numbers, but help them find a way to report and get to the place where they'll be the best supplier for you. And that requires conscious effort and continuous effort.
Yeah, and incorporating new requirements in our supply chain, onboarding documents, and as we're developing a product, choosing the right suppliers and partners to bring a lower carbon emissions product to market. And that's absolutely driven by insights from the customers. As you mentioned, they and us are all going to have to start reporting our emissions at in correlation with our financial disclosures. And
That's right.
so they are collecting this information from us rapidly, and wanting to be more specific about the carbon emissions of the configuration they purchased, of the logistics option they chose, of single pack versus multi pack. So the demand from customers for more product carbon emissions information and to get it more accurate to the product that they purchased and the logistics option that they chose and the end of life option that they chose. The increasing demand for that data is not going to slow down as we all are having to report these numbers publicly. We all want to get them as accurate as possible, and that's a
Yeah.
big industry challenge.
Yeah. And you talked about, lowest carbon footprint. And as I was stalking you online and to prep for this, I found a quote that you were talking at an event, and you said something along the line of the lowest the product with the lowest carbon footprint is the product that you're not making. And this speaks to repairability that you were saying earlier. If I can repair something, I don't have to buy a whole new machine, or if I can harvest pieces and components from different machines that average end of life and create a new one, again, that's another way of really thinking about sustainability. How And you said at the beginning that one of the reasons why your customers were concerned about repairability on Concept Luna was it was too easy for people to actually get into the device. But how are you balancing the making something that is robust and at the same time easy to repair? Um, are we If you look at it from from a consumer perspective, the Repairability Act has been something that we've been talking about a lot, especially around phones, not so much PCs. And I think because, when you're talking about a screen, or you used to be able to swap out the batteries, not anymore. There are things that from a phone perspective seem less daunting than not a PC, because the PC is such a more complex machine. But we are talking here about really commercial customers that have thousands and thousands of machines. How do you think about that, about the role that repairing versus repurchasing, and what are some of the even here hurdles that you might face as an industry, not necessarily just Dell?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Repairability is the cornerstone to maintaining a PC beyond its first useful life and into future uses. It may not be an entire new PC, but those components can build collectively a new refurbished PC, and that is a reduced emissions. There are a lot of methodologies being debated about how to attribute emissions to refurbished PCs, because it is complicated. You have already accounted for the emissions in that first life. If you're only upgrading certain components, do you only impact the emissions of that second device, the second life, with those improved
You,
upgraded
yeah.
components? So that's been a request from customers as well, is, hey, if I want to extend it another year, what do I need to take into consideration to attribute emissions and account for them? Because it's not this whole PCF, but I don't have the math to do this other, equation myself. So that's kind of the same hurdle as the industry needing to get more specific on product carbon emissions and the components that come with it, the supplier data that comes with it, all of that. I think it kind of tiptoes into services. So we do have a
Yes.
service for Lifecycle Hub where we can fully manage, your fleet and do that refurbishing and then that redeployment to you and run the analysis to say if this product should continue on or if it should be repurposed for spare parts or for refurbishing. So there's the, idea that we can help you maintain your PCs for longer. A lot of people like the car analogy. If you don't bring your car in for an oil change, it's not going to last as long, and you're going to have to make major repairs that are going to cost more, and that might, tiptoe into the just buy a new one because you've had such major needs. But if you maintain the life of the PC through, driver updates, keeping good health of it, cleaning your fan out, just some basic things to, keep your PC alive for longer, then it will stay fully functioning, slight degradation, but it will function for longer if you take good care of it. And then we also see some
Sorry, I'm
customers.
cringing because I don't think I've ever cleaned my fan in any of my devices. It's terrible.
Yeah, it's I think the first thing that PC repair people do is open it up and be like,
And
"Wow, maybe
clean.
you should have taken some air dust can to this fan once in a while."
Noted.
Yeah, and you know how important thermals are. So if the fan's not
Yes.
working well, then the PC's getting hotter and it's wearing all the other components down. So just, love your product more and it will love you for longer. Just that reciprocation. And then I was going to mention PC as a service because,
Yes.
it may help customers get things on and off their books quicker. They can have the value depreciated and see that back in their books. And then if we are taking the PC back in a PC as a service environment, we're going to take it back after 3 or 4 years. We have the infrastructure to then put that down a refurbished product line, do that parts harvesting. So those things that seem complicated, if you're on a lease or PC as a service model, we take all that on for you and ensure that the responsible next life is had.
Yeah, including the fact that your data is secure and that all the
Yes.
machines are going to be wiped properly and all of that. But I liked your car analogy because I think about it also in, sometime it is actually better to change your car if you're thinking about, the fact that maybe it might be polluting more because it's old and so, there, or it might consume more gas because it's older. There's so many different aspects of it, and I think that now, from a European Union perspective, companies will be required by law to have a mix of refurbished product as part of their fleet. So, this is another part that, for some companies will be new, for some will be business as usual. And it's not just about cost anymore. It is about being more environmentally conscious when thinking about your fleet.
Yeah, I think France has already made that law, and it
Yeah.
had some stumblings along the way of interpreting what refurbished means. Also, because my example of Lifecycle Hub, if you're paying us to refurbish something for you and redeploy it to your own workforce, does that count? Because you have refurbished it. So there was some, language about the product versus the service. And I think it was a good stepping stone for the larger, EU to adopt something similar. But it was nice to kind of shake the cobwebs out and see exactly what does this mean, and is it creating the right action? Um,
Yes.
is it actually enhancing the circular business model and connecting parts of that circular business model where partners need to be connected to ensure that things last longer? So it's the right
Yeah.
direction, yeah.
You said at the beginning that we would run out of time, and we are running out of time. But before I let you go, I really want to end where I started, which is the fact that, while some people see the fact that you cannot go into a store and buy a Concept Luna machine as a failure, I actually see it as a win, not just for Dell, but for the industry and for sustainability. Help me clarify this once and for all for people. Why all your learnings got you in a better place with more positive impact that you can actually achieve now?
You're correct. We see it, at Dell and for the world, we see it as a win. If it is going to be a catalyst for change internally and touching all aspects of our business, our supply chain, our operations, our product design, our services, all of the things in the middle of that, then it's a win. We have, fundamentally changed how we think about PC design. That whole "we've always done it this way" approach isn't working anymore. And so I give credit to Concept Luna for driving a fundamental shift in how Dell is designing PCs and how we're working across our organizations to accomplish these things. And I think it has also driven some industry change. um, it's always a fun, competitive market. And so I think this is one area where it's friendly competition. We all need to make change in this area. And by one person doing it, then, ITADs and EDPs, the electronic disposition industry, and those set of
Mhm.
partners, they receive all of our devices. So, any progress in repairability and reducing emissions, whether done by us or others, is a win. I'll just, call it a win because it's moving everybody in the right direction. And it's just the time will tell how much of these changes get collectively impacted across the industry.
That's awesome. I couldn't agree more with you, and I do think that I always say diversity, equity, inclusion, and sustainability are two aspects of the tech business where friendly competition is going to move us forward. As an industry, faster and better. So yes, let's have it, and let's work together to get to a better place. Thank you for being with us today. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you and know more about your work?
Probably LinkedIn is a good place, a good mutual landing spot. You can find me at Katie Green, and I'm the Katie Green that works at Dell in sustainability. So that should narrow it down a little bit. There are a couple Katie Greens out there, though.
Thank you, Katie. I really
Yeah.
appreciate the time and look forward to see what 2025 is going to bring from a sustainability perspective.
Yeah, stay tuned.